The Lodge made a brilliant video about the Norwegian welfare state, which I would very much recommend you watch. In it, he said this.
As such, I will assume that it will be impossible to cut anything out of the modern welfare state. In all due likelihood, that is not true. In all due likelihood, there is a lot of money that could easily be saved and cut out of nonsensical social welfare programs.
As he said, there's probably a lot we can cut, and here are my proposals to where we can do it. Healthcare is a really big issue, one that we here in Europe with our free healthcare laugh at Americans for not having figured out. I however think that Americans were on the right track. It has just been corrupted by drug and insurance companies, or big pharma, as Alex Jones would put it. For a bit of background, this is the budget for 2016, all 1,558 billion crowns of it, and this green square is the healthcare budget. At 265 billion crowns, it makes up about 17% of the national budget. My solution would be to let private companies run the hospitals. Americans get great healthcare even if it costs them an imperial fuckton. So how do we make sure that the average Norwegian don't have to pay a metric fuckton? We give people health insurance. If you don't do things that make you more vulnerable for certain diseases, you get health insurance from the government. We don't want people to be afraid to leave their houses. To make sure tax money isn't wasted, the government must negotiate and get the best deals possible. You would, of course, still get insurance if you are vulnerable for genetic reasons. Anything else would be retarded. If you, on the other hand, decide to do something that makes you more vulnerable, your insurance will no longer cover that. If you got lung cancer because you smoke, it's your fault for smoking. If you got a heart attack because you're fat, it's your fault for being fat. If you broke an arm because you didn't follow the traffic rules, it's your fault for not following the traffic rules, and so on and so on. You would then have to get a different insurance, like a smoker's insurance or a retard insurance if you plan on breaking the traffic rules. Or you could just pay for it yourself. This would probably help people to stop smoking, start exercising, and stop driving like fucking retards when I'm trying to go somewhere. I also think you should pay for your own checkups. The insurance only counts if it's something serious. I don't know how much money we would save here, but making people pay for their decisions is a good way to make sure they make the right decisions, whatever that means. This blue square is the education budget. At 173 billion crowns, it makes up just over 11% of the total budget. I think there are things that can be cut here too. If you go to university in Norway, you get student loans, but unlike American student loans, these are some of the best loans you can get. For 1 year you get a little over 100,000 crowns, about 40,000 of which can be made into stipends if you meet the right conditions. I like this system. I think it's important that we teach people to become scientists, engineers, doctors, teachers, economists, and so on. There are many things we need, especially if we want to completely turn our economy around. Something we need to do. Again, watch the Lodge's video for more information. You may notice that there's a few things not on that list, like one of the first things that came up when I went to the list of things you can study at the university I currently study at, Africa Studies. I'm sure the continent of Africa has a rich and interesting history, but studying Africa is not going to be the new oil that Norwegian politicians love to talk about. Neither is art and politics, art history, or art studies. Fuck me, NTNU. Why? Why are you doing this? You're supposed to be the Norwegian University for Science and Technology, for fuck's sake. My proposal is that we each year find out what we need and what is going to be useful. The people studying something useful will get the cheap loans and the big stipends, and the people studying useless shit won't. They will just have to get a proper loan from some bank or leech off the parents. I think it's unethical to force the taxpayer to pay for stupid shit like equality and diversity. I also don't think people studying abroad should be entitled to anything extra. They should just get the same they would if they studied in Norway. And now, the big one. Social protection. This blue square contains 632 billion crowns, a bit more than 40% of the total budget, and it will keep growing. Number one is obvious. Raise the retirement age. We live longer, we work longer. When people work longer, they pay taxes longer, and they will need the pensions shorter. Second, it seems obvious to me, although it doesn't to everyone, as one of my friends can tell you, that people who can work and that there is a job for should work. If you can work and there is a job you can do, even if it's just emptying the rubbish bins at the local secondary school or sitting in the checkout at a supermarket, you should work. If you don't, I take that as you saying, I'm fine on my own, I don't need any help, and thus you don't get any help. If you lose your job for some reason, like the company you work for going bankrupt, then of course you should get enough money to survive, and you should get help getting a new job. The money ends as soon as you either get a new job or you say no to an interview. As simple as that. Third, the people who are able to work but can't find a job should still just get just enough to get by as a real incentive to find something to do. They might even use the skills to start their own business or something. There is probably a lot more that can be cut here, but those are the things that I found the most obvious. If we look at the whole budget again, there are a few more things that can be cut. The purple rectangle contains, among other things, foreign aid, which I want to do away with completely. The only thing I want to spend money on outside of Norway are organizations that help out, like the people who built refugee camps in Lebanon. And even there, we need to be absolutely certain that the organizations we give money to actually do what they say they are going to do. We should no longer give free money to third world dictators at the taxpayers' expense. The purple section can't be scrapped completely though, as it also contains the salary of politicians, and most important of all, science and research, which if anything should get more money. The pink one is defense, which can stay where it is. We want to keep NATO happy, and thus we need to spend at least 2% of our budget on defense. The blue one is culture and religion, which we can almost scrap altogether. No more money to churches, mosques, synagogues, gurdwaras, temples, and all the other bullshit I visited on a school trip to Oslo last year. Also, no more money to crazy women walking around the room saying random words.
Small, 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 small. Plan. Leaves. Fall. Fell. Floor. Stable. Table. Down. Under. Water. Bark. Bad. Dog. Stay. Back. Up. Sit.
This is considered art in Norway. Paul Joseph Watson would roll in his grave if, he was dead, which he isn't, fortunately. Other artists should, of course, not get any money either. If you can't live off your art, get a proper job. The only thing left here is the bare minimum to keep museums running and sculptures free from budget. This pink one is police, courts, prisons, fire protection, and other such things. I think we can cut this a bit by saying that a crime needs a victim, and by pardoning everyone who is in prison for a victimless crime, like smoking cannabis. This would let police focus on cases where people were hurt in some way, and the prisons would only be filled by perpetrators of such cases. This green one is environmental protection, which we can probably cut a bit. The last two are a green one, which is for building houses and getting water into said houses, and a pink one, which is spending on businesses. With an increased population, the green one will need money, and when trying to get people to start new businesses, the pink one will need money. So at least for now, they will have to stay at least where they are. This money will not be seen as a cut in taxes for a while. First priority is to pay off our debt. Then we need to make sure our budget is small enough to run, even without extra oil money going to find the new oil. Then we can start cutting taxes. I mostly agree with the Lodge on what we should cut, although I think a very small value-added tax on everyday items is fine, and that if a private individual has a shit ton of money in a bank account somewhere, it would be fine to take just a tiny bit of it every year. Money hidden under the sofa does not contribute to the economy, and neither does money hidden in a bank account. This will, however, only be a concern for the very richest. Most people, and by that I mean almost everyone, even if they have a few millions to their name, will be too poor to have to worry about this. Companies, and especially Norwegian companies, should not need to pay for giving people work, or for making money. They pay their taxes by their employees paying income tax. These changes should probably be made even before trying to pay off the debt. But those are just my thoughts. Thank you for listening.